Okay, so welcome to the live CRM Q&A call. There are a few people that have RSVP'd and they have not yet joined. So we're going to get started on time. And really, this is about focusing on content relation, not automation. I've been seeing a lot of people using their CRM in a way that is really a lot more about automation than it is about relationship. So welcome, Megan.
Hey,
How you doing?
doing well.
Awesome. All right. Well, cool. We might have a lighter class here today. So this is awesome, right? Like we want to be able to do the Q&A here a little bit more live. So thanks for joining. There are a few other people that said that they would like to join. So they did not check the box. So anyhow, long story short, we are here. So I was just kind of getting into what we're going to be discussing about today, which is really content relation and not automation. Now, CRMs actually absolutely have this huge, amazing opportunity of doing automation. Yet I think a lot of people are focusing more on the automation piece than the R of what CRM stands for, relationship, and really developing that. So, just like we've done, and thanks for joining us again. Recording this and, really I'm excited about doing this and being able to ask or to answer any questions that you may have as you're working through some things with implementing your CRM. Because again, it's about being able to put the content out there and sharing it in a way that connects to your audience and is really relational. So that's really the concept and the objective. The three main objectives that I really have behind these calls is to create content, create relationships, and create the things that we're really looking to do. Obviously, create business development, organize. There's a lot of things in terms of organization of how do we organize things in a way that can really be able to connect to the audience, to your internal team as well, because there's a lot of amazing things that CRMs can do internally, albeit sending notifications out and things of that nature, which is something that I've been doing a little bit more of is, okay, I'll send out this email and then this notification will come to me and or someone on my team to be able to help do X, Y, or Z. And then what was the last one? Connect. Really it's about connecting to the who we're really trying to serve with what we're doing. So I'm going to give a real quick overview of myself before, even though I know, Megan, I know you're very familiar with who I am. And I just want to make sure that for those that are going to watch this at a later recording, that they have a little bit more of a better understanding of where and why this is so important to me. And then we'll get into the challenges and then your questions. So who I am, I'm an artist. So I actually have a separate business that I actually do where I'm creating art and I'm doing them for businesses, I'm doing them for families, and I'm just out there in the community connecting to people. I actually create like a connection, like a community-oriented art. So that's something that I really enjoy, and that's the creative side. And then I'm also a systems guy. So I do the left brain, right brain piece, and a lot of people comment on that as how I can really understand and connect to creatives because they have a lot of different ideas. I have a lot of different ideas. I'm doing two businesses here now. It's taken me 12 years to kind of identify how to break all those things down. And that's really it. I spent almost 5 years as a coach for Tony Robbins and coached well over 300 some CEOs one-on-one, helping them with business development, and really their sales process and business development. So, there's a lot more things that I could go into. That's really, I'm a skier, mountain biker in the summer, skier in the winter, and just overall, all around curious guy. I'm constantly reading new books. I'm actually currently reading a book on Lewis Hamilton because I have been following Formula One since 2005. I've actually had some years there where I wasn't watching it, but I just love what Formula One is all about, and I love who Lewis Hamilton is and just what he did, coming from nothing to becoming a 7-time world champion. So anyhow, I've been really watching that here. So that being said, let's hop on in. As I mentioned, the topic, as I was getting prepared for today, I was like, what can it really be about? And it's actually kind of stemmed from something that I've been a little bit more I guess the spidey senses have been going off a little bit more in terms of just how people are using CRMs, and I think the bad rap that is getting in a lot of cases. So the title of what this is about today is content relation and not automation, because there's so many different people that I'm seeing that are like, okay, well, yeah, you could send this information out and then here's a Calendly link, and again there's efficiencies in there, and I love all of those things. At the same time, if you don't have a relationship with that person and you're just doing your automation things without having and establishing that in some way, shape, or form, I feel like there's a miss there. So again, there's the way that I kind of like to structure this, and again, Megan, I want to really open us up to some questions that you may have, and we could dig into whatever that it may be. Um, is like, think about it as boulders. I don't know if you've ever heard the analogy of where the professor walks in and he's got a big jar on his desk, and there's big boulders, big rocks, smaller rocks, pebbles, and sand. And he said, if you put all the sand in first and the pebbles, and then you go backwards to get to the big boulders, you don't have any room for the big boulders because all of those little things fill up that jar. And so I'd like for you to be thinking about, as you're creating content and relating your content to your audience, how do you create those big boulders first? As an example, and again, I'm not trying to say like I'm patting myself on the back here as like this is the end all be all. At the same time, this is what I'm doing in the marketplace, and this is what I'm seeing is valuable to the people that I choose to serve. And that is, I do a monthly newsletter. And that monthly newsletter is talking about updates and things that I've been working on and things of that nature. That's a big boulder, right? It's not customized to them. I'm not saying, hey, because you like this or whatever. Like, it's like, hey, just we've met, like, and they have said, yeah, they'd like to receive my newsletter. So I'm sending out something that reminds them of, hey, oh, that's right, Mark is doing this now, or Mark's working on this, or whatever. And so it's a way of creating that relation, and I'm creating content that's relating to them. One of the things that I wanted to introduce this year after doing this all last year was putting together a video that goes out there inside of the newsletter. So it's just giving people a different chance, because there were some people that were saying like there's almost more people that would watch the video over reading the newsletter. So I wanted to like listen to that and offer something to serve my client. And I'm working on developing a better video system inside of like what it is inside of my newsletter. So that's one example of a big boulder, as opposed to like trying to send out like, hey, do you want to meet with me right now? And that's later on down the line. So you have to like understand and recognize where you may fall as it turns to like, who are the people that you're looking to serve, and then also like where are they in the overall funnel. So one thing that I did send to all the guests that said that they would like to join here is this worksheet, and this really starts to give you an idea of who you need to talk to. So that bit of kind of content or context for the idea of content relation and not automation is kind of what I wanted to really talk about and today. And the one other thing that I'll say, and then I want to open it up to any questions, and then we could dig in wherever. But it's really this formula that I started introducing a couple months ago, and that's consistent strategy plus consistent activity equals consistent relationship results. And so it's the strategy, right? What boulders are you putting in place? What activities are you doing? Because not only do you need to, send out that email, but also it's like, hey, by the way, here's something like I just had an opportunity to be featured in Ben Lifestyle magazine. Actually, it just came out today. It was they mentioned they sent out an email to all of their list saying, hey, here's our new issues coming out. And so that being said, like those are things that I have an opportunity to now like reach out to people for those that had picked up a print of mine or have done something inside of my art. That's something where I can really like add value or talk to them in a way where I'm actually creating that relationship with them instead of just sending them email after email after email after email. So, all right, consistent strategy plus consistent activity equals consistent relationship results. So, not to put you on the spot here, Megan, but I was like lining you up here a little bit of like, hey, when you have a question, let me know. So do you have anything particular questions about content? Because I know that you're introducing a new CRM for your firm, so for your agency. So yeah.
Yeah, I got on board with a new CRM, and I kind of like I have two, and but they still collect all the same info essentially. All the same people are on both of them, so that's
Okay.
good.
Okay.
But something I've been trying to figure out how to improve or automate is, obviously the face-to-face relationships and the things that you do within networking. And when you finally get to talk to those people over email, I'd love a way to get those people automatically added into my new CRM in a way. Um, and then, I'm curious how you go about when you meet new people and you get their business cards and you start that relationship over email. Do you spend time on a consistent basis kind of going through your CRM and categorizing them into the right uh categories, or is that kind of like a 15 minutes a week thing that you do, or how do you stay consistent with that, or how can you make that easier? Because I'm getting out and meeting a lot of people
Yeah.
recently just with networking and such,
Yeah.
and so I'm realizing that I'd love a way to make it easier to like get those people into the CRM and then categorize them accordingly, or somehow create like whether it's a Zap or a Zapier Automate or something that gets them into the right category on my CRM. So that's kind of what I've been struggling to figure
Okay,
out.
awesome. No, that's a great question. I think one that a lot of people connect to and relate to. So I'm going to talk about the second one that you just addressed, and then I'm going to go back to the first one, and I have some clarifications that I need to make on that. So that that being said, I want to say, and you've heard me talk about this before. I'm going to just repeat this because this is really important. You mentioned Zap, and when you mentioned the Zapier integration or Zapier, I don't know how you say it, but I know it's a Zap. That's an automation piece. And the biggest thing that I like to talk with my clients about and on these calls is the 4-step process, which is basically capture. What do you want to do? Like, what information do you need? Apply. Is that information that you said that you needed, is that really applicable in terms of your day-to-day use? Then you refine it after you apply it so many different times. Then you can automate it and put that Zap in because you've already gone through this process, an iterative process, a number of different times. Like, so, that's one thing that I want to just make sure of is before like we go right to Zap, let's think about, okay, what are the things that we need to do? And I don't know if you received it, and I'm more than happy to send it to you or anyone who may be watching this at a later time. I have a CRM like naming convention, like kind of like spreadsheet that you could start to look at. Now, it doesn't specifically address this, but it could start to give you some of that capturing piece. So where I'd like to go with you on this would be on the apply side. Yes, when I get someone's business card, I do a very specific, very manual, right? This isn't like this is cool because you could just take a snap picture. You could eventually get there, but like manually, what I've been doing is what tags do I want to include? And all of the different CRMs have different naming for that. Like, I use a tag in Active Campaign. I know there's fields that you could do. There's contact elements and drop down things that you could choose. So, all of the CRMs have different things, but it's really just the idea of like, what do you want to know about this person, and how do you want to classify this person? So what I would say is, do you feel like when you go to this networking event, like there's people that I know that I'm like, they're not going to be a customer because I'm looking, the audience persona of who I like to focus on is creative agency owners, right? So if I go out to a networking event and I meet someone who isn't a creative agency owner, but maybe has access or they're related to that in some way, shape, or form, they're not going to be a sales qualified lead for me. They're going to be more of a referral partner of mine or a partner or a complement. So what this really comes down to is understanding who that persona is, and this is something that comes up every single one of these calls, and it will continue to because it's that important. Because if you don't know who you're trying to serve, then you're going to just try and put everyone in the same bucket and then send out a blast email, which I just received. And this is actually kind of one of those things that happened. there's a friend of mine that I knew of from years ago, and I just got this email, and she's now sent out multiple emails. Now, I know she's a great person, and I'm like, you just chucked me in with everyone else. You don't know what I'm looking to do, right? And you're just like chucking me in with the 500 names that you probably have. And again, I there's a difference between judgment and discernment. And it's like I just am discerning like what that is, because again, this is what I'm like working on a lot of with clients. So my spidey senses are a whole lot more, and I'm articulating that a little bit more. So I'm actually going to reach out to her and just kind of say, hey, like this is what I'm noticing, and as a friend, like I want to just share this with you. There's going to be other people that are just going to unsubscribe or commit you to spam and say, this should be reported, right? So like you have to be mindful of all those things. So like again, it comes down to that persona. And so what are the fields? I'm not sure how your CRM that you're currently using, how you set up a contact. But I know in HubSpot and I know with ActiveCampaign, there's certain fields that I just fill out, right? You can make them asterisk that you have to fill them out every single time. And that in and of itself, doing that exercise a number of times, albeit over 2-3 months, like every time you go to a networking event, oh man, like it would be great for me to have this field. Okay, great. Now add that field in. So now you know that you need that. For instance, I was updating someone the other day, and because of this article, it's kind of come out already like online, but this is like the first official drop day of the actual physical magazine. And I got someone contacted me that they said, hey, would love for you to come and speak to our audience. So I didn't have a speak element of like interest level, right? I had some of these other things, but it was like, oh, so I just added that in. Or actually, I don't know if I did add that in yet, but I like made the note last night, so it's like part of my checklist of things. But I'm like, that's what I mean by like the more and more you keep doing this, the more and more things you'll refine. And so like trying to set up a Zap without understanding all those other nuances of all the things that could come up, that's why I really say that apply refine stage should take a while. Like that should take 2-3 months, and every time you do it, you're going to learn more. I know you specialize in doing social media, and like one of the things that I've been doing a little bit more is I'm like, I was trying to a little bit more automate it or leverage it, which again I think is something that I would like to do eventually. But there's some things that I'm trying to do right now where I'm like, oh, it's good for me to like click some buttons and do some things, even though it might not look the best. It's like I'm putting that out there and I'm doing these things so that way when I do choose to hire and delegate that and work with those companies, like I now know what I'm looking for, as opposed to like, well, you're the expert, do it, and they could take it and just elevate it. But like it's knowing where you want to start from. So like the biggest thing that I would say is like understanding who that persona is. Like, can you personify it? Second of all is how would you qualify it in terms of, is it sales qualified? Is it a marketing qualified lead? And then do you want to have a source in there? Again, these are some of the things that I have on this spreadsheet, right? So like when you look at the source, networking, do you want to have a networking and then specifically a label of whatever that is, chamber of commerce or something else? These are where the nuances come in. But how important is it for you to know that? And do you want to make sure you have a source every single time? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Like that's really up to you. I think it's nice to know, like going back and looking, because I did a manual analysis of this years ago, and it was like so many things came from like me being out there and networking and talking and or client referrals. So like 80% of the clients that I was working with came from either myself being out there and or clients referring me. So taking a look at what are those fields that are most important, and then that really comes down to the filters. Like what are the filters that you want to be able to fill out? Like I could tell you very specifically how many people and how many names are in the list of my art update newsletter, right? And I also could tell you exactly how many consulting opportunities I have to talk about, like the CRM integration with business development to really create relationships and more business, right? But it's like I had to go through a number of things in order for me to figure out, well, what's most important? Well, I want to make sure that someone has an interest tag of, yeah, they actually want to do something with the CRM. So like they get put into this um, consulting opportunity. And then that way I could think about, well, geez, I know Megan, like I'm just going to use you as an example, like, but I know Megan and like, here's what I heard Megan needs. So to go back to the point of this call, content relation, not automation, hey, there's some templates that I could use and that I could put together, but I could send them to you individually, like a template, or I could start to say, well, I know Megan kind of has these attributes or these characteristics. Uh, I'm going to put her in this sequence that's adding value that, and it goes back to Gary Vaynerchuk, the Jab, 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 Right Hook book that he came out with years ago, which basically relates to give, ask, right? And it's like, give something of value, give something of value, give something of value, and then ask. And so the more you have an understanding of content relation that's going to connect to who that persona is, you're just trying to throw out and get an email like I got from this friend of mine from a number of years ago, where it's just like nothing about what I'm dealing with or what, like not like just it's just I could just tell it was just a mass email, right? And so the reason I wanted to start off with that newsletter piece is that's a mass email too. And those are people that said, yeah, I'd like to receive that art update from you. And it's not specific exactly to the things that they're working on or challenged with or whatever you want to say, but it is that big boulder that allows me to share content with them in a way that I feel is relational. And again, and this is in my own best approach or attempt at it because the article that I was featured in is art with intention, and like the things that I do, everything that I choose to do in my business is really intentional. Like even these calls, like I'm really intentional about. I didn't just show up here thinking, okay, yeah, I mean, I figured there's going to be questions. If there weren't, then I was going to be ready with content. Last month there was no one on this call, and I did it at the same exact time because I said I'm going to do these calls on the first Thursday of every month. Now, caveat, July 4th is a first Thursday, so I'm going to do it on the second Thursday of that month. But that's a plan for me for this year. And it's really being able to be that, consistent with consistent activity, plus consistent strategy equals consistent relationship results. And that's really that formula that we were talking about. So does that help that second question that you had? Because I know there's a lot in there.
It definitely helps, yeah. And as a plug too, you and I worked on my CRM a couple years ago or a year ago or so, and put together these audiences in these different groups and the naming categories essentially. And that's been incredibly helpful. And having those categories has really helped me to, be more intentional, like you said, about what types of emails I send out and who goes to
Mm-hmm.
what goes to who. But yeah, I think it's time for me to kind of look at my audience now and think a little deeper on that because I've had that stuff set up. And now it's time to just kind of slightly refine it because needs have changed and resources have changed. And so now I need to look at those audiences and say, all right, what types of emails go to this group and what types of emails go to this group, for example. And then it'll be, I'm excited about it because I'm really looking forward to having all those names in different categories and I can actually see like everybody that it's going to. And it's a lot simpler, when you finally just do that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise you can get stuck and say, oh, I need to sort through a bunch of stuff. But once you just get it done, it makes it so much easier. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's, CRMs they're a consistent investment. You have to check on them and update them and you
Yeah.
can't just like set it up and go. It's that you that you check in on and adjust accordingly because your business changes and those needs change too. So a good reminder for me to just kind of look at what we have set up and
Yeah.
tweak it slightly and think about the purpose of all those categories.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, and thanks for the plug. And yes, and two, like think about this too. Like as we were talking about the four steps, right? Capture, apply, refine, automate. We first started out with capture, and then we applied, and like you're in this stage of applying and refining and applying and refining. And the beautiful thing about it is the first thing that's the longest time that shows the least result is the capture stage.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, like, how many months did we work on that, right?
Right.
At the same time, like, you started applying it, and you have to start. You have to, like, quote unquote start to start, right? And once you start applying it, then you could say, oh my gosh, well, I have these emails, but these 3 emails should actually go in this category, and these 2 emails go in this category. Well, you didn't have to write 5 new emails. You just had to classify it in a way that you're like, oh, this makes more sense. And guess what? That content relation is going to actually develop more of a relationship with that person because they're going to hear and feel understood. The biggest thing that I feel like is happening in this world right now is that everyone's just trying to talk without really truly like understanding what the other person is really challenged with. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll often say, like, you have to understand who you need to say no to in order for you to know who you could say yes to. And saying no to people is like, oh my gosh, as a business owner, like, I get it. Like, there's time, yeah, we've got bills, we've got payroll or whatever we've got to do, or yeah, we've got those bills, like whatever that might be coming up. So like saying no, you have to be really clear on why you want to say no to them, because you realize that when you're spending that time with that client that may say yes, you actually end up spending a lot more time, and then you end up parting with that client because it wasn't a good fit for them, it wasn't a good fit for you. You end up losing money on that client, even though yes, you made money, but you lost the time, the energy, the effort, the frustration that can sometimes be on both sides, right? So no, so that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And like I said, the piece I want to iterate there for anyone again who may be listening that has things and it's like, oh well, wait, like yeah, I can organize this over here. I don't have to like you don't have to throw the whole thing out. You just have to recalibrate it a little bit. And the more you manually do this, the more you start to see, oh, okay, well, yeah, this now I can automate it. Now I could create that zap, because yeah, there's definitely some zaps that I have set up where it's like, man, this is really cool. Like I love when you could just move it from one column to another, and I use Active Campaign, and it's like, man, that just sets off this whole sequence of thank you, and here's a notification for me of what I need to do, or things that the team needs to do. So that's great. I'm going to go back to your other. Oh my gosh, we're already almost at time here. Does that also kind of address the other question, or like, can I just kind of succinctly do that? Because I do want to ask two other or one thing and then kind of give a little CTA here. But
Oh yeah, that does.
okay,
I feel good. That covers
okay,
it.
okay, awesome. So the one thing that I have, and I'm going to throw this in the chat, and I can even put this for anyone that wants to get a video of this, and I could throw this in here. I have like, what would you be interested in? So I've got a number of different tools that I've created to help, and I just put them all in the chat with like what the goal is of each one of those. So I'm going to quickly go over them. And for those that are re-listening to this at a later time, what would you be most interested in receiving? I have a dashboard clarifier. It's a time clarifier calendar to see where your daily efforts are going. A productivity booster. The goal is really to take daily actions towards productivity, and like little steps that you could take. Like, here's the overall idea of what a productivity booster is, and then here's step one. Like on Monday, you could do this. Tuesday, you could do this. Wednesday, you could do this. Must knows. It's really the goal is to kind of get steps for you to prioritize yourself and like what you need to do to really grow your business development. A mind map is really this goal to have a visual representation of your ideas, and then grow sales. This is another course of basically like have a weekly business development focus with daily actions that you could take. And then I also created these modules called sales momentum, where it's basically the same thing, goal to set up steps to build on your business development momentum. So there's a lot in there, but I've created all of these things, and I'm like, what would be, I'm trying to gain some interest to see like, where do I need to, like, I've applied it, like I want to now refine it, but like what would be the thing that I should most likely refine that's going to add the most value? Because again, like what's the content's going to relate to you the best versus what I think could relate.
These are all
So
good, so that's a hard choice. For me
okay,
personally, I'm gonna say the dashboard clarifier for
okay,
focusing daily efforts.
okay,
So that's
sweet.
something I personally could use.
Okay, sweet. All right, well, good. Well, I will work on a little bit of that, just taking that clarification down a little bit more. So thank you for your questions. Thanks for being here. Thanks for showing up when you said you were going to show up. I really, I mean, and I'm saying that in the best possible way. Like, the best way to have a relationship with others is to have our best relationship with ourselves. Things come up. I totally get it, and I'm actually going to add this in as for people that want to sign up. Um, and this is just kind of a side, but at the same time, like, it is really relational. If you want to have relationships with other people, like, the best way to have a great relationship with yourself is to be in relation with your word. And again, I understand things come up. There's a lot of things that can happen. Communicating that, though, is also you being in relationship and good relationship with yourself. So, that's just a quick aside. And also, I think it's really important because if there's something you're like, yeah, I'd like to be there, and you don't show up, that's a different relationship with you're having with yourself. And so, again, I'm saying that in the most loving way because I'm going to have that on my on the sign up piece, and I want to make sure that intention is shared with, like, relate back to yourself and like honor yourself. It's not about people, like, I'm just going to do this if one person showed or if 50 people showed, right? And so I just want to kind of reinforce that. And if there's anything else too that would be helpful for you in a future call, let me know. And as I always mention too, for those that want to do, like, I do these sales evaluation calls where we'll do a sales evaluation audit of, like, here's the 7 things that you can do in your business. And there's some questions that we'll go through in this call. It's a free call. And again, this is for anyone who's listening in, that might not have been able to be on the call, to just say, hey, these are the main steps. These are some areas that I'm really strong at. These are some areas that I could really use some improvement on in my business development. So I want to make sure that I offer that up to anyone who's watching at a later time. And as always, I appreciate this. I'm a communication guy. Like, I love community. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. So I just want to continue to grow this. So anything else that I could do to continue to improve this, as I'm applying and refining it, see what I'm doing there? We'll keep on doing this. So thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording now, and we'll see you next month on the first Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you so much. All right, let me